Labour's war on landlords has begun, and today I'm going to be looking at 3 of the major changes that they're looking to be bringing in the autumn budget, and how you can turn those changes into your advantage. The first thing that Labour are looking to change is bringing the capital gains rate in line with income tax rates. At the moment, capital gains is charged at 18% for a basic ratepayer and 24% for higher and additional ratepayers. However, income tax brackets are quite different. It's 20% for a basic ratepayer, but it jumps to 40 and 45% for a higher and additional ratepayer respectively. So for a lower ratepayer, your capital gain would change from 18% to 20%, which actually doesn't affect you too badly. However, for a higher and additional ratepayer, that is going to affect you quite substantially, because you are going to go from 24% capital gain to 40 and 45% respectively. In my opinion, this is excessive. And the reason I think it's excessive is if because you have accrued £500,000 in capital gains over a 50-year period, and you're an additional ratepayer, your capital gains bill goes from £120,000 to £225,000 overnight, which is a difference of £105,000. Is that fair for someone that has been investing for 50 years with a certain set of rules for it to change so drastically overnight? I don't think so. If you do, let me know in the comments. Personally, I don't think it's something that a government should be able to do. And the reason is, that person has made a historical decision to buy property and hold it over a long period of time with a certain set of rules were in place when they bought them. If the capital gains rate had been 45%, would they have bought the property or properties? Who knows? Maybe and maybe not. But the point is, I don't think those rules should be allowed to change. So what's the answer? Well, when you buy a property, I think the capital gain rate should be locked in. So if in 1978 the capital gain rate was 20% and the owner decides to sell the property in 2024, guess what? I think the capital gain should still be taxed at 20%. Why? Because that's the rules that were in place when they bought the property. Would you think it was fair that if you walked into a supermarket and picked up a steak that was £5, and by the time you did the rest of your shop, you got to the checkout and they said, that steak is not £5 anymore, it's now £12.50, because in the time that you've been shopping, the tax has gone up, and that's what it is now. I think most people will be outraged and put the steak back, which it actually doesn't affect you that bad. But the problem is, in property, you can't just put the property back, you just have to suck it up, take it on the chin and pay the tax bill that the bullying government tell you that you have to. I find it ridiculous. However, there is no point in crying over spilt milk, so what can you do about it? Should it affect your decision to sell? Well, I think it should, but not in the way that you might think. I think it should deter landlords to sell. Why would you sell and pay 45%? If you need some money, you could refinance it, hold the property, because in 4 years, we're likely to have another government. And we all know that different governments bring in different rules. And if reform get in, then the capital gains rate is likely to drop. And even if Conservative get in, the capital gains rate is highly likely to drop. And you never know. They might even drop them to lower than they are now. But I know that paying 45% is certainly not an option for me. Now, I can hear landlords screaming that they just want to get rid of properties because of the new tenant rights that are coming in. But if you stick around to the end of this video, then I'm going to give you a solution to that too. But that does bring me on to the second change that Labour are looking to bring in, and that is tenant rights. Tenant rights have been growing over the last few years, and the introduction of a Labour government is going to see that accelerate to new heights. It looks like Section 21 is going to be scrapped, which basically means that a landlord can't evict a tenant at a drop of a hat with no reason, which I actually think is a very good thing. Landlords won't be able to stop tenants having pets, although arguably they never have been able to anyway. And it's been said that Labour are looking to create a new system which, until all the rules and details are finalised, no one knows exactly what that means. But it could mean that if a tenant decides to chop the hours in work at half, then the government deem them to not have enough money to pay the rent, which means that as a landlord, you are not receiving your rent and you have no right to actually evict the tenant, which seems crazy to me. Now, these are just a few of the tenants' rights that are looking to be brought in. And I'm not saying that I disagree with them, but what I am here to do is offer a solution to landlords who simply don't want to offer their property on an AST contract any longer. And that solution, landlords, is serviced accommodation. If you turn your property into serviced accommodation, then all of the tenants' rights disappear because you don't have tenants anymore, you have guests. And guests have no rights. Guests have to pay before they come into the property. And if guests don't leave, you are legally allowed to remove them from your property. Airbnb and Booking.com are fantastic for reimbursing landlords if there's any property damage or if there is a party that happened that shouldn't have happened. Your property is maintained to a super high standard because it is cleaned thoroughly after every stay. And guess who pays for that? You get it, the guest. And you keep control of the property. If you suddenly need to move into the property, then you can. It's there, it's furnished, it's ready to go. So if you ever need that property for whatever reason, you can block it out on the calendar and move in straight away. I run my own Airbnbs and I manage them for other people. And a lot of times when I speak to landlords and try to tell them the benefits of short-term accommodation, they tell me that it's risky. I've done both. And I will tell you what is risky. AST contracts are risky. Bringing tenants into your property is risky. And it's going to be even riskier after this October budget. Do you want to know the strategy with the least amount of risk in 2024 leading into 2025? It's serviced accommodation. Now, the third thing that Labour are supposedly bringing in are changes to the EPC laws. They have announced that landlords must have an EPC rating of C by 2030 for the tenanted properties. Now, we have heard this before. The Conservative government looked to bring in this change and this rule, but they scrapped it at the last minute. Now, you can call me cynical, but in my opinion, there was some element of that being done on purpose to get small landlords to sell up. Now, they don't want small landlords to prosper. Government cannot want small landlords to prosper. It's quite clear that they don't. Otherwise, why would they bring in so many changes to absolutely crucify landlords? I know many landlords that heard about those EPC changes and got scared and thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to pay £20,000 to bring my property up to standard or it's not going to be rentable, and they got scared and they sold the property. And guess what happened? It got scrapped. They got played. Pretty similar situation to what is happening now with all the landlords running around trying to sell before Labour bring in all these scary changes. So what should landlords do in preparation for these changes? In my opinion, absolutely nothing. Unless, of course, it's important for you to bring up the property to an EPC standard for your own reasons. Reacting hastily to government changes or supposed changes way into the future is never a good thing. Now, if anybody has any questions about the things that I've talked about today, about any of the changes that are supposedly being brought in next month, then drop me a message either in the comments or on Instagram. I will leave the link to my Instagram below. Lastly, thank you for watching. If you can find it in your hearts to hit the subscribe button, it would really mean a lot to me. It helps the channel more than you know. And that is all. I will see you in the next video, and thank you for watching. Goodbye.